Dehumanization, lack of empathy for Palestinians is alarming and dangerous. I mean, it's sad what's going on. I mean, and the crazy thing is when you defend the Palestinians, the innocent kids that are being killed, they call you names and say that you're on Hamas's side. And even though you also admit that what Hamas did to Israel was despicable, is sick, the killing of innocent people on both sides. But but if you if you speak out against that, they call you anti-Semitic and all these other tropes. It's crazy, and what they don't tell you is that in Gaza, half of the population is under 15 years old. So it's a lot of children that are at risk that are being killed right now, and you got even conservatives on the right that's not speaking out against this. We're supposed to be for peace. We're supposed to be Christian conservatives. We're supposed to want peace on both sides. But you have people like Hannity, that are warmongers that want to obliterate these innocent people. It's disgusting. It's sick what's happening out there, and I don't know. It feels like it's a dark it's a lot of darkness heading for our country because of this. Sooner or later, God is going to respond to this, and people like Hannity. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this. It's just it's. I feel like world and most of the world knows that World War III is here now, and it's like a dark cloud over our country because a lot of people, the majority of our country, it seems like, is for blood. They want to murder these innocent people. Again, half of the population of Gaza is under 15 years old. And then you have people in Israel saying, well, they can leave, they need to leave. But they don't tell you that they're bombing places, the exits. They're bombing the areas, they're bombing the refugee camps, they're bombing the hospitals. And so, where are people? How are they going to get refuge? Where the innocent people are supposed to go when you're bombing the areas that you're telling them to go to? I mean, it's sickening, and the mainstream media isn't talking about this, and mainstream conservatives aren't talking about this, and it's despicable, and it saddens me. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my merch store. Also, check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for news as well. All right, let's talk about this disturbing news. The enormity and brutality of Hamas's gruesome assault on Israel last Saturday resulted in the brutal murder of at least 1,300 Israeli men, women, and children, has naturally prompted a widespread display of sympathy and solidarity with Israel worldwide, especially in the United States, Europe, and other Western nations. Concurrently, large numbers of Palestinians in Gaza uh, are also losing their lives. In reaction to the massive act of terror, Israel initiated an extensive aerial bombardment of Gaza, the most devastating uh, the besieged region has ever witnessed. So far, 1,799 Palestinians, including 583 children, have lost their lives, and 6,000 have been injured. Entire neighborhoods have been destroyed, leading to more than 423,000 people becoming internally displaced. However, there has been no equivalent outpouring of sympathy for Palestinians. In fact, the US and European powers have resisted formal calls for a ceasefire or even expressions of concern for Palestinian civilians, effectively permitting Israel to continue its military operation without hindrance. Even Israel's decision to cut off all water, food, fuel, and medical supplies to Gaza, an act regarded as a grave war crime under international law and elsewhere condemned as acts of pure terror, elicit no protests from Western governments and was occasionally defended, which makes no sense. So now you got children, again, a population where half of them are under 15 years old, are starving, have no water, have no electricity. So the hospitals can't work. They're running out of fuel in the hospitals to help these innocent children. And nothing. Crickets from the West. And even public demonstrations of sympathy or support for Palestinian victims are considered unacceptable, widely condemned by elected U.S. officials as cold-hearted or even pro-terrorist, which is not the truth. In the zero-sum world of U.S. politics, only Israeli victims receive recognition. And in psychology, we call that generalization, black or white thinking. Either they're evil or they're good. And if you are for the innocent people, the innocent Palestinians, or you're for the innocent people in Gaza, then you're evil as well. Not talk, even though you can condemn Hamas, but just because you're for the innocent Palestinians, you're evil as well in their eyes. The message is clear. Palestinians' lives, suffering, and humanity are considered less valuable than those of Israelis. This failure of U.S. and other Western officials to empathize with Palestinians or acknowledge their suffering is alarming and dangerous, given the actions and capabilities of Israel on the ground. Particularly notable is President Biden's inability to express any empathy for Palestinians, despite his palpable solidarity with Israelis, a sentiment even George W. Bush managed to convey during the darkest days of the second Intifada. Even more concerning is the dehumanizing and, in some cases, genocidal rhetoric from Republican leaders referring to leveling the place or describing Palestinians as savages who must be eradicated. I mean, it's sickening. And these are the same people that call themselves Christians. The Bible don't want war. I'm a Christian. I want peace. And you have conservative mouthpieces, again, like Hannity, talking about obliterating these innocent people. It's sickening. And the fact that those attacks occurred in the context of a suffocating 16-year-old blockade and 56 years of Israeli military occupation with all the indignities and deprivations they entail is dismissed as irrelevant or at best more I'm sorry, I'm struggling today because I'm so upset. Moral equivalization. It is true in principle that there is no moral equivalence when it comes to the killing of innocent people and the right to self-defense. However, determinations of what is considered moral are often based less on the actions of the parties involved and more on their identities. And we're seeing that right now. Consequently, in Biden's words, terrorists purposefully target civilians, while democracies like the U.S. and Israel uphold the laws of war. In other words, Israelis, in contrast to Palestinians, are exempt from committing atrocities solely by virtue of who they are, an idea that is both ahistorical and fundamentally racist. Furthermore, self-defense is not without limits, as Israelis' own record during this and previous conflicts, including indiscriminate bombings, reckless disregard for civilians, the use of prohibited weapons, and other war crimes demonstrates. The current environment is especially conducive to atrocities given the unprecedented intensity of Israel's ongoing assault on Gaza and the inflammatory rhetoric of Israeli political and military leaders, driven by a combination of trauma, humiliation, and a stated desire for vengeance. Now think about it. There was one man. He was 31 years old. He was trying to flee. He went to a refugee camp. The refugee camp was bombed. He fled to another refugee camp, and that refugee camp was bombed, and he lost his children and his wife, lost his entire family, and then he fled that area and went to a hospital where he's laying out in front of the hospital probably right now, hoping that the hospital won't be bombed, hoping that that's a safe area. But we know when it comes to this, there is no safe area. Israel is going to bomb without regard. But when the Israeli defense minister refers to 2 million Palestinians as human animals, anything becomes possible. And similarly, threats by Israel's leaders to turn Gaza into a deserted island, or that Gaza will be a city of tents, should be taken seriously, especially when Israel possesses the means and motives to carry them out. The lack of outrage over Israel's recent order for the entire population of northern Gaza, over 1 million people, to evacuate to the south, seen by many as a step towards mass expulsion and a prelude to fulfilling the promise to flatten Gaza, underscores the Palestinian population's status as lesser than human beings. American and European officials who view themselves as champions of liberal and egalitarian values may resent the suggestion that they prioritize some lives over others. However, how else can we explain US and EU indifference to Israel's use of starvation as a weapon, or their ability to tolerate the violent deaths of 500 children under the label of collateral damage, or the 16-year blockade, which has already rendered Gaza unlivable, according to the United Nations, or the ease with which inflammatory and false claims of decapitated babies and mass rapes were disseminated uncritically by U.S. and Western media and officials, including the president himself. Compassion and empathy are not finite resources. It is possible to mourn and honor the hundreds of Israeli women, children, and men who perished or were injured in last Saturday's brutal attack without simultaneously diminishing the lives, suffering, and basic humanity of Palestinians. You can do both. In fact, any effective response to the current crisis would necessitate doing so. I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail, but I doubt it. I think Israel is going to use this as an opportunity to take over Gaza. I don't think there is any chance for peace right now. I feel for the Palestinians. I also feel for the Israelis that lost their lives from Hamas as well. I don't see any change unless God steps in and put an end to this. I fear that we are definitely now heading a fast pace into World War III. But let me know what you think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.